Hello and welcome to Opening the Gates to More Listings with Estate Agency Mastery with me, Simon Gates, and
me, Chris Buckler.
So thank you very much everyone for being here today, live in central London at a fantastic location. We've got a few thank yous to say first. So a massive shout out to Digital Sparks who are recording today. Really appreciate the content. They said they're going to make me and Chris look very good.
Handsome and attractive,
So if they don't refund, that was the deal.
Yeah. Good.
And Dan Firth from Bid, who has been on the podcast a couple of times, so you would have heard his dulcet tones before. Sorry, Dan. And shout out for the pick and mix there. And then Chris.
Yeah, and then we have our sponsor for the podcast that have basically paid for the beers and all the good stuff. Kieran from Propult. Propult are a direct mail tool that allow you to look at withdrawals, all sorts of really good stuff, and I think it's a very good tool, so thank you very much, Kieran. And then lastly, we are in some very swanky offices. In fact, you can probably only see me and Simon in some green chairs, which is a real shame because we're in some amazing offices in prime central London, RIB, so thank you to Anthony for allowing us to use the premises. He said we can do this every month now, so thank you so much.
So between us, so Open the Gates Small Listings, Estate Agency Mastery, we have recorded in excess of 200 episodes. And some of you might already know this, I like data a little bit. So I worked out on my podcast, I haven't told you this, I think I've released, it's like 9,000 minutes worth of content.
I think I'm 9,001.
Oh yeah. Okay. I've been to Tenerife, he's been to 11 Tenerife.
Yeah.
Thank you for the last, appreciate that. So we've recorded over 200 episodes and some of our guests are in this room today, which I think speaks volumes because you've got people who've come on the podcast, given value, they're also here learning today, which I think is a huge thing. But what we're going to start off with is our biggest learnings from doing the podcast over the last, when did you, July 22 mine started. When was yours?
Last year, sometime.
Jumped on the bandwagon.
Big on data. I'm not as big on data, more scripts. What's brilliant is Simon and my podcast are quite different, and we're very different. One thing we spend most evenings doing is texting each other about real estate trends or what videos are going off, or we've got a guest in the room, OHRE. Wow, look at what he's doing, look at what Bulldog's doing, look at what Matt Giggs is doing. Jay, Josh, we are absolute geeks. So whilst we come at it from a very different standpoint, we really appreciate real estate and how it's evolving, and we just geek it, don't we? And I think tonight we'll get across our learnings from way back when, my learnings from traveling to real estate conferences around the world and speaking to some of the very biggest agents. And I guess the goal is you will leave with something actionable that you go, I learned from the sharings from Chris and Simon, and you think that was pretty decent. So if everyone takes one thing away, I think we've achieved tonight. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Cool. So I think on that, the reason I started my podcast was some people had said to me I should do it. And I also was like, I want to ask the questions and I want to get the answers that I feel I'm not getting from the podcast I listen to. And it might sound a bit harsh what I'm about to say, but what podcasts tend to do is, so tell me your story. And everyone says, I fell into a state agency. Hands up in this room if you fell into a state agency. Don't be shy. Pretty much most people, right? I always wanted to be an estate agent. Everyone's heard that story, so I don't need to repeat it again. But I wanted to get actionable value. I wanted to listen to a podcast and go, can I take things from that conversation and go implement it today? So again, a shout out to someone in the room today, Stephen Brown, when he first jumped on the podcast with Luke St. Clair and Andy Overman, got half a dozen years ago. I was listening to those between appointments, when I was walking the dogs, and it made a fundamental difference when I was an agent. It made such a difference that I'm no longer an estate agent. But what we're going to be talking through to start with is our sort of biggest learnings, takeaways. So out of all the people you've interviewed, Chris, and he doesn't know I'm going to be asking him this, but what are your three biggest takeaways from the guests that you've interviewed? Like what makes them the high performers in a estate agency?
Oh, that's a great question. The biggest high performers I've ever met, whether I've interviewed them on my podcast or outside, all know exactly where they want to end up. They have a true north. They know what the goal is. I want to be 600,000 personal profit this year. I want to be a 10 million GCI. I want to grow a team and service North Carolina with 50 agents and whatever else. And I'll even take it further to go, and I want to use that money for something else. Money's good for the good it can do. So if I was to say, right, how do we get there? One of the things I advocate, and I'll happily share this and what have you, but does everyone in this room, whether they're employed, self-employed, whatever, have a one-page business plan that they refer back to that moves them closer to their goal? Because the amount of agents I speak to, and I know you're the same, day in, day out, that are really busy, but they're not doing anything to move to that true north, to where they need to get to. So the first thing I'd say is having a very clear plan. Now, my view on that is, and I'm going slightly off-piste, is have your plan, go towards it, review it each year, but never change the goal. If you're not performing to goal, still keep that goal as it is. Because for me, you have someday goals, 5-year goals, 3-year goals, 1-year goals, and you can track. So I'd say they all know clearly where they want to get to and the compound effect of the actions that they take now. That leads us, I guess, to the second point of consistency. One of my friends, I used to be involved in Keller Williams, which is a great business. A very good friend of mine is the 5th agent year on year out of the 200,000 agents that Keller Williams has across the world, a guy called Stephen Cooley. And I said to him, we went for lunch, and I said, listen, I actually recorded this. I said, do you still lead generate between 9 and 12 every single day? You've just done 5 million in commission, you and your team. And he was like, of course I do. I was like, but you don't need to now, or there's tech, or he was like, why would you break the process that got me to where I got to? It doesn't make sense. I think it's really easy, and I see this the whole time when I speak to agents, is to go, shit, I've got no listings, I'm the lead generate, I'm the door knock, I'm the canvas, I'm gonna do some really cool stuff on social, I'm gonna invest in marketing. I've got 5 now, thank God. Right, I'll get a few off the back, I don't need to lead generate. I call it a drive to 5. Then once you've got 5 and you're a great agent, you will get more. You have a few fall throughs, you sell a few of them, and then you go, whoa, what am I doing? And there's a law called Parkinson's law, which is however long you give a task is how long it will take. And without structured consistency, I just don't think you're going to achieve. And I'm saying this like I do this all perfectly, and like my goals are all perfectly aligned. I'm a work in progress, right? At the moment, I know I'm being inconsistent by not doing as many socials as I should be doing. I've just sold my business, I've got 1,000,001 things on. But because I recognise that, that's why I said to Simon, we've got to do this, right? So we'll get loads of content today, there'll be loads of socials. That's kind of my, if I want to be known as an authority in this space, that's why we're doing what we're doing. And then the very last thing, which links to the two, is time blocking. And it is, I put a post out when I started my last brokerage, and I said, if you show me an estate agent's calendar, I can tell you how much they're going to earn. And a few people are, oh, what a wanker. And they had a point. But it's true, right? And I don't care if that's some of the biggest agents in New York. I do the odd, I've done maybe 4 or 5 deals in New York over the past few years. So when I go over there, I get to see what the best New York agents are doing. And guess what? They all have a plan. They all lead generate pretty much the whole time. They time block, and they are militant. And they will not waste their time on things that aren't going to move them to true north. So I guess those would be my 3: having a plan, consistency, and time blocking.
That wasn't bad. One take. There you go.
Thanks for coming, guys. Good to hear. Simon, how about you?
Well, first of all, it's really hard to not have my notepad and pen, because anyone who's been on a podcast with me, they probably see me turn away to my other screen making notes, or I'm writing notes on a notepad. So there's lots of things you were saying there.
Don't worry, we're recording this.
Yeah. I think, though, in terms of what you're saying, one thing, I'd say speed to action. Like, ideas are one thing, action is everything. I've said this a lot recently. The best guests I've interviewed on the podcast, the gap between idea and execution is minuscule. Like, they get on with it. I think us doing this as a prime example, so Chris kind of said, I talked about like doing a live podcast, and then the next thing I know, Chris, like, we've got a venue, we've got a videographer, we've got a date, and I was like, shit. And it was 3 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah.
And some people in the room might have seen me do this, might not. Actually, hands up, did anyone realise I did the Daniel Priestley waiting list? Did anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah, a few hands? Yeah, so the whole purpose of the waiting list was, we're always going to do this podcast, but I put a message out going, if I was to do a podcast in London, who'd be interested? And there were comments, there were messages, and I was like, Chris, I think we're on for this. So yeah, idea to execution, there's no gap. Like, it is minuscule. They get on with it. And I think a really good example of that, actually, I was thinking about this on the train down here, not in a room today, but Vicky Babira's Location, who I'm sure many of us are familiar with. I went to do some training with them 18 months ago, and they've got like this unbelievable training platform downstairs. And I was doing training there, and it was intimidating for me because Vicky's one of the best agents in the country, and she's sat in the corner making notes. I'm like, oh my God, like, what's she thinking? She's making all these notes, didn't really say much. And then I sort of go, so how's the morning session gone? And she's like, we've already implemented 2 or 3 things you've said. And I was like, that's why they're one of the best agents in the country. Whereas there's agents who you have the same conversations with, and I'm guilty of it as well, but over and over and over, same conversation, nothing happens. And there's a really good post by Chris Williamson, which is basically the only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing. Thinking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Talking about doing the thing is not doing the thing. Doing the thing is doing the thing. So I think, yeah, just action. So
question to the audience, who right now is thinking, there is something I should be doing that I'm not, and I need to go and do it? Okay, yeah, so, yeah. So, right from the outset, we said if you take one thing away, and I also said put your phones on flight mode, whatever it is, just go and do that thing tomorrow, because you've got to take action. And don't wait for perfection is another one I always say the whole time. We didn't wait for perfection with this. We were going to get some nice chairs. It was great. If on the video, we've got beautiful chairs for the 500 of us here. But we just cobbled it together. Listen, the room's full. There's standing. I don't think we could have done any better. But if we would have worried and maybe said, should we put it off for a few weeks, or should we reconfirm the guests? We wouldn't be here.
Well, that's why I was saying this to a few people before we hit record. Why I did the waiting list the way I did it was that people who've signed up and said they'd attend, and then I've had emails coming through saying, sorry, can't make it. I could then email someone else and could say, great news, a space has come up. And that wasn't bullshit, it was genuinely, you can see we're a bit tight here. I didn't appreciate how tight it would be, but helps the atmosphere. One of the other points I would make as well, Chris, who's in the front row, absolute badger, teacher's pet over there. So Chris and I, so anyone listening to this would not know the story. Chris has been on my podcast. Chris and I met I'm going off piece as I do in my podcast, as you'll know for those of you who listened. Me and Chris met in 2007, 2008, and anyone who worked that market remembers it went proper shit. That's a technical term. And Chris was, I think, senior negotiator at our flagship branch, Oni, and he used to task me with every other weekend he worked. I'd go to the shop and get us bacon and sausage rolls and scratch cards. And then he'd be out all day on viewings and whatnot, and then I'd be manning the phones. And then all these years later, we've both launched our own businesses, which is super cool, and it's really great that Chris is here. But the reason I mentioned Chris is we both went to an event recently where Daniel Priestley, he should get some money from this.
We should get some money.
We should get some money. He interviewed Sahil Bloom. Has anyone heard me speak about Sahil Bloom or follow him? If you don't follow Sahil Bloom, I strongly recommend you do. So it's Sahil and then Bloom. He's got a book called 5 Types of Wealth. It's unbelievable. And in his conversation, I promise there's relevance, it leads back to what you said. He said, don't let optimal get in the way of beneficial. So just say that again, don't let optimal get in the way of beneficial. You think doing that social media post, sending that letter, changing something on a website or creating something in CRM, you're like, oh, that's going to take me an hour. I've only got 10 minutes. Do whatever you can in that 10 minutes and it will make a difference. Because if you do that like 10 minutes a day, I promise you'll be ahead of the majority of your competition. So yeah, I'd say, so can't even remember where I got to. Action over everything, basically. The timing side of things, because Chris went first, because I'm nice, he obviously got some of the easy answers. I think consistency's a really, really important one. So I'm just going to expand on that and cheat, if that's all right.
Yeah, go for it.
Consistency is the most underrated form of marketing. Just keep showing up. You might not produce the best content, but if you just keep showing up, and there's people in this room, I will open up my phone and I will see them on socials. There'll be other people where they're like, yeah, I'm not really busy. And I'm like, I can't remember last time I opened my phone and didn't see you. So again, the Daniel Preezy thing is, who's familiar with 7-11-4 rule? So 7 hours of interaction, 11 touch points across 4 platforms. So if you're like, oh, I did one door knock, I sent one letter, I did one social media post and nothing happened, like, you know, we've had to do 200 plus podcast episodes over 2 to 3 years to be at this point. So I'd say those are my points there. Is there anything you'd expand on that before we go to some of the listener questions that have come in?
No, because there's a lot of questions and we can talk.
There is, don't worry, we're not that far away from the pub for those of you who are gasping. So, right, so there were quite a few questions that came in and I've broken them down to a few different ones. So, going to come to you first, because this was actually directed for you.
Okay.
So Chris, what additional services and relationships do you recommend agents have in their black book to offer more value and stand out to clients? Appreciate there's different ways you can kind of interpret that.
If we go back to top performance, right, in anything, my view is where, and these are slightly different mentorship and coaches, but a mentor or a coach, or ideally both, because success leaves clues, right? If you want to get to be the very best estate agent you can be, you can either go and learn it yourself and fail forward a load of times, or learn from someone like Stephen Brown, who's world class at what he does, so that you learn from all of Stephen's learnings and the best agents in his black book around the world that he's spent time, effort, energy, and money on, so that you can get there so much quicker. So for me, I don't care if you're employed, self-employed, business owner, every single person should have a mentor and a coach in my view. And if I was to take it to where I would love to get it, you mentioned the 5 types of wealth, I've not read it yet, but I would love to get a coach in every area of my life, from business, spiritual, fitness. I know we've got Matt Giggs in the room, who is a brilliant guy as well, but you listen, you've got all the fitness stuff that you do, and I'm massively of the view, if you want to be a top performer in anything, you say success leaves clues. So I would have people that are ahead of me in my journey that can help me get there quicker. I'd also have leverage, right? So leverage is so underutilized. When I speak to agents, if you want to earn 100 grand a year, your hourly rate is £50, right? That's the way I look at it. So if you're doing anything that's a minimal wage task, you might have to bleep this out, but what the fuck are you doing? Because you should not be doing that. That's not good. Again, remember my opening statement about true north and where you're going. If you are ordering your boards, or if you are, you should not be doing that. So yeah, I think for me, leverage is key. So could you find, people always say, I want a sales chase because I want to be close to the client because it's personal. The client doesn't care about whether it's you sales chasing. They care about the standards that you set in the person that you leverage that out to, and the communication. Again, I know as agents on the whole in the UK, we're crap at marketing, right? I know there's Unchained with Simon. I know you touch on marketing stuff. We've got Kieran from Propult in the room. But if you don't have a really good prospecting, again, we'll talk direct mail because you're here, get someone else to do it that's better than you, right? And even down to the aesthetics, the design, and sending it, because we're not marketeers. Most agents, the majority of agents, when I see logos and they go, what do you think? And it's and apologies for offending anyone here, right? But they look like a roofer, and they're like, where'd you get that from? Canva, AI, you can tell, right? So work out what you're brilliant at in a estate agency and focus on that and double down on that, and everything that you're not good at, leverage out and get someone else to do. And work it out on your hourly rate, right? Because for me, we should be dealing with clients, lead generating, dealing with offers, paperwork, everything else, in my view, should be done by someone else. I can't remember the last time I sent a contract for, I don't log into our CRM, right? I know that's bad, but I've got someone in my world that's incredible that does it all for me. because it's not worth my time from an opportunity cost point of view, because I know where I want to go and what I'm looking to do in this space.
So I've just wiped 5 questions off the agenda for how long he took to answer that. No, I'm joking. A couple of points very quickly from me. He mentioned Unchained, so Simon Ledbetter. Anyone in the room who's not been on Simon Ledbetter's 30 Years of Marketing One-Day course, strongly recommend it. He's actually coming into Milton Keynes, so my hometown, in September. It will blow your mind how much he goes through. And also actually check out the Voice of the Agent survey. The data in there is incredible. Like, you think, yeah, we can be like conditioned, like we think we know what's going on, but actually if you read that, it's really, really interesting. And then just in terms of like those additional services, there's so many different routes we could go down, but I'm conscious of time. But when you started talking, I thought of Perry Power as an example. So just very quickly touch on that. For anyone in the room who doesn't follow Perry, follow him. He's unbelievable. He also does an amazing boot camp. A guy called Royston Guest. But Perry talks about offering onward negotiation or a search and secure service. Hands up in the room if you've ever done onward negotiation or search and secure. So a few hands have gone up. And I know there's at least a couple of people in the room. I'm looking over this way, I hope you don't mind me saying. So I won't say actual like stats, but Sarah launched a business not too long ago and hadn't had many leads come in. I'd say that's fair to say. And then you did a VIP buyer campaign and had some incredible results from that. And then Paul Leslie behind you has had some unbelievable results from doing it. Very quick, funny story. Can I share, Paul? I always ask his permission. So Paul was selling a property and his owner wanted to relocate to a different area. And I said, during my days at Home Search a few years ago, I said, send out some letters on their behalf. And he went, but I don't operate in that area. Why would I do that? And I said, just do it. He got a phone call, or maybe 2 or 3, from people saying, get lost. Like, my house is worth loads more than your client's budget. Paul rings up, Paul, how you doing, mate? How are you? Not great, Simon. This is shit. And then that eventually tied up a chain and a very, very handsome fee. So yeah, if you don't do onward negotiation, search and secure service, like find me afterwards to chat about it, or go check out Perry Power. It's got some very good things there. So on to the next question. And my God, Chris could talk for days on this, so don't.
Sorry, I'll be quick.
Yeah, be quick. Quick game's a good game, is that the same?
Yeah.
Right. God, so he's going to take so long. How important do you think building a personal... Did you ask this question?
Yeah.
How important do you think building a personal brand is within a estate agency today?
It's everything.
And that's the end of the answer.
I genuinely think I can leave it there. If you are not building a personal brand, you'll be dead in 5 years as an agent. I'm fundamentally of the view, now obviously I'm slightly biased, but I believe 50% of transactions by 2030 will be done by self-employed agents or personal agents. There's a massive shift in that space, right? I obviously love that space. It's where I've been involved for the last 10 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, yeah. And I believe the battleground, and I talked about this gentleman earlier, but you've got Oliver in the room,
yeah,
right, who is freaking crushing it. If you don't follow OHRE or Oliver, you're probably one of the only people in London that don't. He's incredible and he's destined for great, great, great things. But it's a personal brand and he's playing all out every day. He's consistent. Everything I talked about in the earlier part of the pod, right? But I fundamentally believe the battleground with AI, which I think we've got a question on later, but it will be what we're doing now, the audit trail we're leaving on socials will help the consumer decide what agent they want to use. So the more you go further back, you've got to remember the number one reason people choose agents is trust. The number one reason people don't choose agents is trust, right? So when your AI, your personal AI, there's a book called The Future is Faster Than You Think, really worth a read. It's about 5 years old, but it's scary of what's coming. But your personal AI in 5-10 years will go, if you go, what agent, should I use? You won't be going onto Google and typing in estate agents in Fulham, right? Or Birmingham or Solihull or whatever. It's not going to happen. So people go, I'll do it when I get there or whatever else. We're in an arms race, and if you don't have a personal brand already, you're losing. And if you don't really push that, and it doesn't necessarily need to be a personal brand where you're slapping yourself on socials, right? We're in prime central London. There's other ways that you can get your personal brand out without maybe being brash but at the same time it will work in PCL, but it's different, but it's how you get your personal brand to your client base, whether that's socials or not, or a mix or subtleties, or your client base, not database. He beat me up on my podcast the other day. But it's absolutely everything. And if you haven't started doing it, or you're a little bit scared about your first video, or you're not consistent, you need to be doing it. Scroll up on Spotify, stop listening to this podcast and post.
Yeah.
Because you are, I often do an exercise where I take out a £20 note and burn it. And if you're not pushing your personal brand right now, you're burning future money. It's that simple.
So on the personal brand side of things, again, there's people in this room who do it fantastically well. And I think I was on a podcast not long ago with Ross Daniello from Chartwell Noble along the towpath. You should go check that out. I think one of the questions he said to me was about where I would, was it on that? Yeah, I think it was. Where would I invest my first £1,000 if I was to go out as an agent tomorrow? And unsurprisingly, being me, I said, well, I'd buy some stamps and I'd be sending out letters and whatnot. But I also said, like, this videographer filming us going down this canal, how much does he cost? Because I would be getting half a day's worth of content. And actually, my good friend and mentor, Sam Hunter, over in Australia, he was on the Complete Agent podcast recently that James Kendall, Ian Story and Dave Warburton do. If you haven't listened to it, you should check it out. And Sam was talking about some unbelievable video content, such as going into all your local areas and doing like spotlight videos and stuff. And if you look at, particularly, I would say in the brokerage world, we said Chartwell Noble, there's obviously a lot of video content at Talk. And then we've got Ross McKenzie in the room, who launched Isla Alexander. Very early hire, was a videographer. The guys at The Avenue have got a video team there. So it's like video. On the flip side of that, Ollie, I'm going to come to you. So all over socials, as Chris said, if you don't know who he is, that would surprise me. And you're proper out there as well, right? Proper out there. But I think some people are letting personal brand, they're thinking that that's doing the work. So you do all this video and stuff, but you've done some like fucking cold DMing, right? Like, you've worked hard behind the scenes. So you might see people like Ollie online, you might see Tanya Baker, you might see James Scudder of a Country Living Group and go, oh my God, they're on jet skis in Pembrokeshire, and Tanya's just been to freaking Switzerland or something. I can't remember where she's been. They've been doing direct mail. They've had doors shut in their face. It wasn't just personal brand. That was part of a wider marketing mix. And I think it kind of goes back to one of the original points I made of like the common traits we see in the high-performing agents we speak to. It's marketing combination and not a one-trick pony.
It's omnipresence.
Absolutely.
It's omnipresence, right? If you can have social media as part of your lead generation model, but you have to underpin it with other stuff.
Yeah.
And then we've got an agent that about 85% of their leads come from socials. They're in the room, so I'm trying not to look at them. But I actually think that's dangerous, because of what if the algorithm changes or whatever else. So what we want to do is work with said agents. It's a bit embarrassing now because they're staring at me, but to ensure that the omnipresence is there, the other things are in situ, right?
Was a good example of that, and I don't know the whole ins and outs of it right now, but TikTok got banned at one point in America, right? So if an agent's only strategy was TikTok, they were fucked overnight. So it's like, you've got to, and I'm not saying spread yourself thin and have all these different strategies, but you've got to make sure that you've got different bits. And one that does bug me is when, and I've done it, but you wear like a badge of honor on your sleeve, all my business is recommendations. If all your business is recommendations, think how much potential business you're missing out on. And if you did amazing business with those people that you have nurtured and created relationships, not prospected, Mr. Brown, then that might lead to more recommendations. So in doing it, you will generate more recommendations.
Can I just add one thing on that? I'm going to. It can't be sporadic either. It needs to be planned. You need to have a marketing strategy where, for example, you know that a base rate change is coming up. We all know roughly what's going to happen a day or two before, right? So are we getting an article out? Are we putting on socials? This is my prediction. Are we becoming that economist of choice? and actually engaging our client base with meaningful email marketing. That, you know, what are we doing with that rather than sporadic? And I find myself at the moment being a little bit, I'm behind the curve. So my self-realization moment is I need to get back to that. But the best agents in the world that I've ever spoken to, going back to your initial point, will have a minimum 36 touch campaign. I know a few people in the room will really understand that will combine door knocks, emails, you name it, but it's a structured approach. So back to the point of don't wait for perfection, get it done. But if you want to be that top person, you have to have your marketing plan, certainly for the next 3-6 months, nailed, so that you're not going, right, it's Monday, what's the plan this week? Because it's wasted time.
Spot on. Right, you've already touched on this, so you're not allowed to answer. I'm going to tell you what you can't answer. You've got to answer something else. So the answer can't be about self-employed estate agency.
Yeah.
What do you expect to be the biggest change? Because this would be, I think, the obvious answer. But what do you expect to be the biggest change in estate agency over the next 5 years?
AI. AI will replace so much, and in my new role, everyone's reaching out to me with my chief commercial officer hat on, going, can you look at this bit of AI? Can we roll out this? Can we implement this? And it is absolutely scary now. If you look at non-value tasks, even emails, collating viewings, just being able to talk into your phone and go 1, 2, 3 Main Street, Mrs. Mrs. Smith, liked it, didn't like the carpets, got 2 more to see this afternoon, and the feedback is created in your voice, which goes in and then gets emailed out to the client. So I think AI is going to be huge, and that will lead to 2 things in my view. One is the model I'm not allowed to talk about, and the surge, but I also fundamentally believe there are people in the UK, we know this, we are hated as a profession. So our professional brand, our values, our integrity, that is so important. Going back to my last point, there will be a good proportion of the public that do what they do in the States, where they go for sale by owner, and AI will do the negotiating, right? I know that AI right now can listen to a conversation, quickly look up the AIP, listen to tone of voice, listen to the wording, and go, you can get an extra 3 or 4 grand out of this person, and give you a rating. So you can utilize that AI and get in front of it, or it will replace a number of agents, of people that just want to self-serve and don't use them, which comes back to the point of you have to have that personal brand, build trust, and become what Daniel Daggers calls that trusted advisor. And the only way to do it, in my view, is to implement everything that we've been discussing this evening. Final point on that, I think Purple Bricks will make a massive comeback because of their database, client base.
Okay.
And they're a brand name that the public know. And if you look at, I've got to watch what I say here. I believe there will be no Purple Bricks agents left in the next few years, and the AI will replace everything.
Okay, well. On the just on what you were saying there.
Sorry to scare everyone. It's got really dull in here now.
No, but it's like, I know this is such like an overused phrase, but you won't get replaced by AI. Someone using AI will replace you. Like that's the whole thing there. And
can I just add to that? Sorry.
Yeah.
And it's not talking about self-employed estate agencies, but independents, I think, on the whole, will have a higher failure rate than what they do at the moment. And unless you're part of maybe an FIA or a brokerage, but I think there will be more people associated to, whether it's a brokerage or a model, that provide that tech stack and AI stack for you.
Sorry to cut across you. So whether you are, let's say, brokerage, so self-employed, you've got the FIA, Guild, RAN, Ethical Agent Network, to name a few, and I know there's people in the room who are members of those. You can sign up to Agents Together. You don't have to if it's private, but hands up in this room if you are a mentor or mentee of Agents Together. Okay, I love the hands up in the room. So Stephen Brown in the corner is a founding member of Agents Together. If you don't know what Agents Together is, I strongly recommend you check it out. And then you've also got things like masterminds that someone like Stephen does, like Matt does. So whether you are self-employed brokerage, joining a network, going to Agents Together, or joining mastermind, there are some unbelievable things in there. And like, I wouldn't be sat here today if I hadn't reached out to Matt Gigs in the first place. People have heard me talk about it many times before. So no, huge fan of that side of things.
One more thing on that, your tech stack will be more important now or in 2 years' time than it ever has been, and you won't be able to have inefficient tech and just go, I know it's cheap, but I use it to upload to Rightmove, or I know it doesn't API or integrate. Those days are gone. And Simon's point is you need to, my view is join individually looking after your tech stack. I think that will disappear. I think people will outsource like this, whether it's to a brokerage or to an independent like the FIA or whoever who will provide tech on behalf of agents or kerfuffle. I think agents going out and individually negotiating their tech stack, I think those days are over.
I think the tech thing as well and the leverage side of things, and we won't go, it'll conscious of time, but the rise of VA, hands up again in the room, if you use a VA, like that's just going to have a huge surge there on that. In terms of just a couple of last things on this, on the Purple Brit Singers, interesting that you raised that because in the Voice of the Agent survey, the average person can name 3 estate agents. And the average estate agent is competing with about a dozen other agents in a marketplace. So if my maths is right, you've got like a 25% chance of being known. And then if they're getting 3 agents out, you've got a 33% chance of winning that business. It's quite scary when you think of it like that. So that's why marketing is so important. And in terms of some of this, I guess, is AI, it's in the tech stack, but I'm just going to reel off a few bits here. It's as if I'm being paid secretly for some of this name dropping, which I promise you I'm not. But who have I thought of? Prospector Pro with John Paul, talking about AI on telephone recording. You've got Agent Connect with Luke St. Clair doing some amazing things. Mike Nettleton with Agent Response is unbelievable. Of course, and you can pay me later, Open Move, trying to fix up the conveyancing process, because having this conversation earlier, it takes like 160 days for a sale to go through, which is absolute bullshit. It needs to change. And we've seen, this isn't like a conveyancers versus estate agents or vice versa. We saw with the stamp duty deadline, it can be done quicker, but it goes back to your Parkinson's law, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, if you've got 2 weeks to finish a project, it will take you 2 weeks. If it needs to be done by 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, you're doing an all-nighter, right? Right, next question. This one was directed to me, so I'm kind of going to
ask yourself it. Do you want me to ask you it?
No, that's all right, I can do it. And then you can expand on it. So one I loved from a previous podcast you were on was, what views do you hold that you think most in agency would disagree with? So I was like, this is when I was on Along the Towpath with Ross Daniello. And the question, he asked me that question, I think I hesitated for 10 seconds, and then I said, estate agents charge too much money. And what I meant by that was, we talk about race to the bottom, but genuinely, I think so many agents are charging 1%, they're not worth 1%. I truly do believe that. Like, have you, again, hands up, have you been in a situation where you're getting chain details and you're like, Jesus Christ, like, they don't know whether they're coming or going. But there is then also a place where 2.5% is achievable. Like, estate agents 100% are worth 2.5%, but charge what you're worth, be worth what you charge. And too many people are trying to increase their fees, but they haven't got that sort of stuff sourced out there. Is there anything you'd add to that?
I like it.
I hope I haven't lost the room there. Fair point? Yeah, cool. Right, this one is linked to self-employed, myself being self-employed. This is actually something, Stephen, we discussed. Stephen rang me on the bank holiday weekend recently, and I said I was at my desk working. He said, it's a bank holiday, why are you working? I sort of joked, it's self-employed life. So I think there's a thing online for the self-employed world. I get to pick up my kids from school, I get to take them from school, life's amazing, etc. But you've been self-employed for a long time. What is the reality? So sure, you can, do the school run, but there must be weekends and bank holidays, etc., etc.
It's fucking brutal, right? It is brutal. It isn't for everyone. It isn't for everyone. And Some people might. What's great is you can go and join a team in a self-employed model and maybe have a mentor that will help you, but no one discusses, and I'll be really raw here, the mental health impacts of running your own business. I've been self-employed since I was 23, right? And there's times where I've been driving around in a fancy Merc and I've been paying my staff and not my mortgage, right? It is tough. Or when I see agents that they've come on in and they've got a really good pipeline and they're destined to do this, but they take their foot off that lead. I don't need to lead gen anymore, Chris. I'm doing great, I'm doing fine. They have 3 fall-throughs, right? And they lose all their savings and go back to the high street. So self-employment, I fundamentally believe I love the model. I believe it's better for the end user. I believe it's better for the agent. But there are lots of things that aren't discussed. The failure rates of self-employment in some models isn't openly discussed, and I have a real issue with it. I have a real issue with, and I've done this. I'm ashamed to say I've done this. Unethical recruiting, where I brought someone in to a brokerage I once ran because I needed to get my numbers up, knowing there was a 50% chance they succeed. That was awful of me, right? And I'm ashamed to say that. So self-employment is brutal. The models aren't all right, aren't all perfect, and there's a lot you don't see behind the scenes. But I wouldn't change it for the world, And I know the whole, I pick my kids up from school and I drop them off, and you're like, oh, shut up, you wanker. No one cares. It's great being self-employed. And I'm thinking, yeah, but you're working till 10 every night. I drop my kids off from school, I pick them up every day, but I don't do a little video about it.
I also, I don't have children, but having been a child who has gone to school, that's my perspective.
Yeah.
My mum and dad hated the school run.
Yeah, I mean...
they put me in school longer. I used to do homework clubs, so they didn't have to do
there are the homework clubs and the preschool clubs, yeah, but... and it is nice to be able to do, but at the same time, when you go back, you put them to bed and you go, right, I'm going to go flip my laptop and get these contracts signed and speak to that agent, right?
I think so on that, actually, I think it's probably a year into when I started my business, and I'd get people saying one of two things to me. You're all around the country, I see you everywhere, you're working too hard. And I'd have a conversation with someone next day, they go, you're always on the golf course.
Yeah.
So it depends what they see. And there are times when, it might be a Wednesday morning and I'm playing golf and I'm like, I feel really bad about this. But then actually, I was up at 6 o'clock in the morning for a couple of hours working. And then at night, you're on the laptop. So it's like you're working the hours that suit you, right? And your clients. So.
But it is good. I mean, I've just had some stuff going on in my personal life where I've had to go back up to my hometown and look after a family member. And I've been able to do that without going to my boss. Can I take some time off? But I worked till really late last night. I was in central London at a meeting this morning, speaking to a really big agent we're trying to bring in Surrey. And I think we've done the deal with them, right? I'm here, whilst this doesn't feel like work and I'm enjoying it, I'm going to work really late tomorrow. I will work the weekends, but then I can go to the gym at 2 o'clock on a Tuesday if I want to, right? And I think whilst it is brutal, if you have the right support system and people that genuinely give a damn about you in your world of self-employment through mentors, coaches, the brokerage that really cares about you, the rewards are incredible. They really, really are. From the 5 types of wealth, by being self-employed, I believe you can move to all of those types. I really do.
He actually, so in the book, Sahil Bloom talks about seasons. Do you remember this, Chris? When so you might go, like it's a myth, there's no such thing as work-life balance. You might go through a really, really busy 2 weeks for whatever reason. You might be selling your business, you might be acquiring one, you might be opening a new office. And there is just not that balance between work and family and whatever. So he says that you have these seasons. Like he was going around the world, and I was fortunate enough to go see Chris Williamson speak live. And I asked him a question, which was, how do you do it? Like, he's a good-looking guy, he's in unbelievable shape, he's traveling around the world, he's got millions of subscribers on his podcast. I was like, how do you do it? And he said to me, he was like, well, there's always going to be one thing missing. He's like, I don't have a partner, I don't have a relationship. He's like, how can I travel the world and grow the business the way I have done and leaving the partner at home? So he's like, something had to give. So it's like trying to find a blend, let's say, rather than a balance. So I'm conscious of time.
That's all right.
So we're coming on to closing tradition now. I've completely ripped off from Stephen Bartlett. All these people who get money out of me. Louise, my other half, will say I'm a marketer's dream. Like any email marketing, I'll sign up to it. People say to me, how'd you go to all these... Thanks for that. People say to me, how'd you go to all these events? Because I just subscribe to anything and I will go to the opening of an envelope. So if anyone wants to invite me to anything, let me know. Right, I don't know what questions are coming up, so...
Am I going to do what you want after as well?
Yeah, so do you want, you ask, I'll ask you first.
Okay.
So I'll just pick out...
He's prepped this, he's blatantly prepped this. Yeah.
This two interesting Scottish personalities who were the person who asked the question and one who answered the question. I think they're both Scottish, one of them definitely is. So it's asked by Lewis Capaldi, and it was answered by James Watt, who I'm assuming is the Brewdog founder, who is an interesting character. So the question I want you to answer, Chris, is do you think your younger self would be proud, look up to you now?
And I've got to answer in a Scottish voice. I don't even know. Yeah, I do. Whoa, that's quite provoking, isn't it? So, yes, I do, because I think they'd be proud of that I am learning based, and I try and do the best for everyone I meet, for my family, and I try and become a better version of myself every single day. I don't always get there, but I try and do that, and I surround myself with people like yourself and some good friends in the audience that push me and lift me up. So I genuinely, when people go, do you remember that time the estate agency changed? And there was a good few people that were part of that. If my name's mentioned there, and that's what I'm pushing towards, I'll be like, that's my self-actualization moment. And I talked at the very, very start about the compound effect and doing things like this, and I think yeah, my younger self would be proud, because I've had to fight for fucking everything to get to where I've got to, and I don't think I'm finished. I don't feel I'm the very best person in the room. I'm far from it, but I'm proud of where I'm at. Yeah.
So the young lad from Solihull.
All right, mate.
If anyone ever wonders, like, what's that weird twang to his accent?
Yeah, I've been back there the last 3 days. He's come back, Ace.
Right, come on.
Ooh. Do you believe the Agency UK will be the #1 brokerage in the UK? An overtake? No. Ooh. Do you want to do that one? Because we kind of asked it earlier. It was about a state agency, though, or not? I'm going to forward that one, just because we had something similar earlier. This is a cracking one. I'm so glad you sacked that off.
They cost money. He's burning £20 notes.
I know, yeah, but I've seen your consultancy rate, so I think we're all right. What is the greatest wealth in your life right now? other than your amazing partner.
So, oh god, this is going to be quite a cringy answer, but I think it will also be, I think it will be a good one. And I actually had this kind of discussion at an event I was at earlier. Health, and the reason I say that is, and I'm completely ripping this up, I think, from Against the Hill Bloom. But he talks about, and he might have said this at the event we went to, Chris, he talks about Warren Buffett, and I think Warren Buffett is like late 80s, one of the richest people in the world. We always talk about Warren Buffett and the goat of investing and knowing the stock market inside out, whatever. Warren Buffett, I sound like such a dick saying this, but okay. Warren Buffett would swap places with everyone in this room because
of his age.
Because of his age. He can have all the money in the world, but actually he would be younger and he'd probably go do it again. And I think there's a guy, does anyone in the room follow School of Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
Has anyone seen that?
That young lad.
Yeah, so there's a guy called James, School of Hard Knocks. He's got Instagram, TikTok channel. Basically started by going around Houston, Texas, and he'd walk up to rich people and going, what do you do out here in Houston, Texas to afford a G-Wagon? Some people are now nodding, knowing who he is. Now, he wanted to do that sort of stuff, but he realised that going into entrepreneurs' businesses, they're going to be like, piss off, mate. So he just found out where they hung around, the golf clubs, outside their mansions, they're in nice cars. Just went up and asked them. He uses Alex Hormozy's thing, school.com, I think it's called. Someone might know in the audience. And I've seen what he charges a month and the subscribers he's got, and he's like probably bringing in over $500,000 a month. And he started out by just going up to people and going, what do you do out here in Houston, Texas to afford a G-Wagon? So yeah, that kind of has digressed from the question. But yeah, I would say my health on that.
Can I ask you a follow-on question?
Go on.
Is there anything you're doing now to become a more healthy version tomorrow than today?
Not physically. Do you know, not now, but something that many people be aware of. I stopped drinking. You're still not drinking, are you? How long sober are you now?
18 months maybe, yeah.
Okay, 18 months not having a drink. Well, this isn't like a whole sobriety thing.
It is.
But yeah, I went a year no drinking. People would have heard this, and within that, it's probably my best year professionally and personally. I quit my job. I started a business, and that was from that action there. So I think again we've already touched on it tonight. Success leaves clues. I like to journal. I don't do it enough at the moment. So that's something I would say would be good. I'd say more for the mental side than the physical side. But in the morning, just writing down, what am I looking forward to today? What am I grateful for? And then I will repeat that at night before I go to bed. I'd say that's a really useful exercise. You might be like, oh, that's a bit dickish, or I'm not sure what I'd write. It can literally be things like, I enjoyed listening to a podcast whilst walking the dogs, or I'm looking forward to this event in London today. So yeah, does that answer?
It does. I just want to throw one thing on that, and Josh Webber in the audience knows I'm really pro on that. Who looks at their phone first thing in the morning?
Yep.
Right, I'd say 60% of the room are putting their hand up. So you let someone else decide, usurp your day and decide your opening emotions. One of the best things I do is I ground myself. I've got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and they wake me up still. Yay, I'm in the 5 a.m. club. Not because I want to be, right? But they get me up. But I love it now because we do gratitude exercises and everything else. But what I was finding is I was waking up, I'd quickly look at my phone and be like, yes, someone's joined the business. This is great. Or, oh, for fuck's sake, that vendor's done whatever and I've had a complaint. And my cortisol levels or whatever, and it would impact my relationship with myself, my kids, my wider family. If I could give anyone one thing from just a health point of view that I've done, and it's absolutely changed the start of my day, and obviously, and I think my serotonin levels, my anxiety levels, is don't look at your phone for the first half an hour, and you'll see it completely changes the impact and the efficiency of your day. Big fan of that.
Right, so we're at the end of the podcast now, but before we finish off, Stephen Brown in the corner, he's going to get all shy and embarrassed now with me doing this, but has anyone in the room heard or contributed to the charity work Stephen has done in recent years for Computers for Schools? Yeah, so hopefully this is the correct amount, Stephen, but since I believe January 2021, Stephen has raised £153,000. And he's got a target of £200,000. And what I'm just asking for everyone who is here tonight and for anyone listening, watching at home, I'm going to send out a link, but if you could kindly donate to that, I would really, really appreciate it, because Stephen's one of the good guys of our industry and he's been a massive supporter of mine. So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. And for anybody that does, you will go into a draw to get a tablet, laptop to give to a school of your choice in your area.
Good stuff. So, what do I always say at the end? Like, review, subscribe, share, and this is going to go out on both our channels. You're obviously going to watch it on mine or listen to it on mine first.
I'll cut mine into the short form because he went on a bit.
And then last few thank yous as well.
Yeah, again, thank you to RIB in central London. Check them out, Anthony. Thank you so much. Thank you to Kieran at Propult. I know we've probably, he's done very well out of his sponsorship. We keep mentioning him. Yeah, thank you. You helped orchestrate this very last minute. So thank you. Thank you to all the guests as well. Thank you to you, mate, because I don't know if anyone knows, but he was voted the most influential man in a estate agency. Yeah. Woo! Which he texts me quite a lot.
As a lot of you would have got that. As well, yeah.
And then Dan from Bid, thank you so much. And
Digital Sparks,
yes,
who, again, remember, you're making us look and sound good. He's now looking away.
Yeah, he's eating his...
Looking and sounding good, so yeah, we do need a refund if it doesn't. But no, thank you again, everyone, for attending, and that is over and out.